statement as far as quarterback and quarterback reps and how that's all going to work is, I'm not going to sit up here and give you guys weekly and daily updates as to who takes reps and when. Right now, there's a whole lot of rotation going on at all positions. So there's guys that you might see out there with the ones or with the twos. It's really irrelevant at this point in time. All guys are rotating. They're all going through the process. There is no ones, twos, starters, not. All that stuff is what you see is going to be a rotation, and whatever you see today might be different tomorrow. So I wouldn't read too much into who goes when and why at this point. It's sort of irrelevant to our process. There's a plan in place for all the quarterbacks. So just so we don't have to do this every day, I'll save you guys the questioning and just understand that there's a time and a place for the guys to rotate, and that'll be what it is. And whoever's first or second or third doesn't really matter at this point. We're still teaching and getting ready to go compete in training camp. So with that, I'll let you guys go ahead.
Were you guys expecting to get Trevor back this early?
I wouldn't say he's back. I know he's participating in a limited fashion in some of the individual drills. That's part of his rehab process. He's in a good place. He's on schedule, and it's one of those things that you think about it like, oh, he's out there at practice and training camp, but really it's, training camp's not that far away. His rehab's going according to plan, but he will be involved in a limited basis in the early portions of practice, working on some of his rehab progression, which cutting and running and all those things are a part of it. He is not actually participating in practice at this moment. So happy with where he's at, excited. His progress has been really good, but he's not necessarily fully back at practice yet.
Do you guys feel like you're better on the edge right now than you were at the end of last season? There's been, obviously, Harold's gone, and you added some players too. Where do you
I feel good about the players we added. I think the dimensions of the outside linebacker position, I think we're bigger and stouter and stronger at the spot, just body type wise. I think that's by design as well. We'll see if we're better than we were a year ago. But I do like the players we've added. I'm excited about what they could bring for us. We're definitely at the edges a more physical looking group from top to bottom. I think is really what the key part of that is depth wise too. They all fit the profile we're looking for. So as of right now, feel good about those guys, and we'll see if we're better or not. But I like what they brought.
Bigger there a priority or kind of what you were looking for specifically?
Yeah, you're trying to set the edge of the defense. There's a physicality that comes with it, especially in the run game. Being able to dent the line of scrimmage, and then power rush on top of it. A lot of the sacks you see in this league are just guys that get in a tackle and walk them back into the quarterback, and those are parts of the rush game that we got to get better at. I think the totality of the room, sort of from top to bottom, I think is deeper, it's stronger, it's bigger. Those are all things that we were looking for.
You've talked a lot about building bonding with all these little games that you've had throughout the off-season program. For the guys who were here last year, and it's probably about a little over half the roster, how do you kind of burn away the bad taste from last year and just kind of get that out of everybody's mind, but yet still haven't learned from it?
I'll be honest with you, Terry, I don't really want to burn that taste out of our mouth. I feel it every day when I walk in here, and our players should too, the ones that were here, because we don't want to be in that position. We don't want to have the type of season we had last year. We're determined to make that look different. So I think part of that being in the back of our minds is a good thing. It's motivating in the sense that we don't want to repeat our mistakes. We don't want to repeat the things that lost us games, and we got to improve those things to put ourselves in a better position to win. So I would say that burning that taste out is not something I necessarily want to do. I think it's a healthy thing to have that in the back of your mind and know what the benchmark is and where exactly we have to get better. And I think guys done a good job of that so far.
What's Jeff's offseason been like to this point?
It's been pretty consistent for Jeff, I think. Again, whether you see him every day here or not, there's one person on this team, probably more than anybody, I never worry about being ready to play on Sunday, and that's Jeff. So been pleased with where he's at. He's working. I know he's ready to roll. So that's really all I can say to that. You'll find out.
I know you've got limited days and limited time, I guess, during the offseason. Are there ways you can maximize time out here with 90 players and a couple of fields where you can get everybody work?
Yeah, we try to. When we have enough depth and we have enough players, we've got to be smart about volume and load and intensity as far as what they're doing on the field. But generally, when we can, we try to split our field, so you sort of have two practices going in those team periods when we can. Right now, today, we're probably not in position to do it, but we did it yesterday. Won't do it today. We'll probably do it some in the future, but it's a numbers game for us because you start overloading guys and they start getting injured, then you start overloading them more, the guys that are left. So it's a sports science thing, but we try to do as much as we can to get as many possible reps as we can manage within the rules and framework of the practice period. So definitely do a little bit of, we call it double and down, where we'll split the field and both teams will be running at the same time. That won't happen today necessarily, but it's something that we look at is, again, trying to maximize the reps and the opportunities we have while we're out here, because the time is still under rule and it's limited. So we try to maximize it.
Everyone responds to coaching differently. Have you figured out what style, what messaging works best for Cam at this point?
I think so. I think Cam appreciates, every player I've ever been around likes to be coached. So I think he likes coaching. He can take hard coaching. I think his mother would be the first to tell you. She's very adamant about that part of it, and that's where you get the feel for that he's capable of seeing. He's seen all different types, and so he responds to all of it pretty well. I think ultimately because he wants to be good, and whatever message it is, he can take the coaching part with the message. Generally speaking, you don't holler at quarterbacks the way that you do at some other positions, but there's a time and a place, and there's a lot of things he's learning right now about defensive structure, about what he can get away with the throws, with the timing. So it's sort of an everyday learning process for him, and it's been really good. But we coach him hard just like we coach everybody else.
How much time did he spend under center at Miami, and he's got a lot more here now?
More than you would think. He actually was under center enough where it's not a foreign thing. It's not like he spent his entire career in a shotgun like some of these guys do. So he had some exposure to it. He's been great under center. He's a pretty natural athlete, so that part hasn't been very challenging for him. He's picked up on that pretty quickly. So got some exposure, has some experience, and then he'll do more of it at this level for sure.
Together in the locker room there, showed on one of the videos.
Yeah.
What are you hoping to gain?
I just think general connection from top to bottom. I think that's the locker room in its entirety right now. Is a lot of guys around, some new faces and new people, getting a chance to connect with guys maybe they wouldn't have a chance to. Certainly, there's some strategic placement on my part. I won't go too far into all of it, but yeah, there's a rhyme and a reason to a lot of it.
Interaction with Cam and that offensive line, like how has that been? How have you seen the guys kind of take to him?
Good. I think for Cam understands those guys well. He understands how to interact with them. I think the biggest thing for a quarterback in the offensive line, especially when you're a young quarterback, is just to know your stuff. Be able to spit the play out, command the huddle, know what you're doing, master the snap count, and that immediately earns respect amongst that group. And once they feel like you're in charge of what you need to know. But as far as his interpersonal relations, he's got an easy way about him, and he's got a way of connecting with all different types of people, and he's done a really nice job with that group as well. But he's played enough quarterback to understand how important those guys are and what those relationships mean, and I think he's done a good job so far.
To the new quarterback room, and what have you seen tangibly out of his work with Jordan Palmer?
I've seen a lot of improvement. I really have. I think him making the decision to go put in the work down there with Jordan was really beneficial. I got a lot of respect for Jordan. I think he's got a good program. He knows what he's doing. It's good off-season work. I see a real improvement in his footwork and his base. His ability to control the football has improved. I've been really pleased with the work that he's put in. He's reacted really well to the room. Will's going into his third year, so he understands what being a professional quarterback is. He understands what you're competing every day at that position to keep your job. I've been happy with Will. I've been pleased with his production and his work so far. He's had a good offseason.
How natural does JC seem on that right side now?
Definitely can see the comfort level. The amount of snaps he's played over there with all of his college career. You see the comfort level. It's just a more natural place for him. He's he's just repped a lot of those things so much more than he did on the left side. And there's something to that. Guys can swing and switch, every tackle, if you're not a starter, swinging. So they still work both stances most of the time, but you can just tell he's, spent a lot of time in that right-handed stance on the right side. So the comfort level is obvious to me that, he feels pretty good there.
Potential grand jury indictment hanging over his head. It would seem
Sure.
that would be something that would affect a guy coming to work. What have you seen from him, and how does that have a bearing?
The things about L'Jarius is that when he's here and working, he's fantastic. He's all the things that we hope he would be. Certainly when guys have off-field issues, he's not the first one. He won't be the last. There's a lot of guys that have things going on outside of the building that maybe aren't into public knowledge, or they're dealing with things with their families. There's a lot of things that happen that just like all of us, you have to separate your personal life and your work life, and be able to come to work and focus on the task at hand. I think he's done a good job of that. Certainly anytime you have distractions off the field, you prefer not to have those. But he's done a good job of handling it and keeping, the work here the main thing, and dealing with the things off the field when he has to deal with them. But I would say that's not unique to anybody in particular. I think that happens to a lot more guys than people realize. Again, maybe not necessarily civil cases or court cases, but just life in general. It can be hard to separate sometimes, and I think he's done a good job of it.
How do you see kind of that spot opposite Cody Barton? You got a lot of guys that are in the running for that. What can you glean from the OTA period and minicamp period coming up as far as the pecking order there?
That's a position very similar to the fronts, that pads are important. You don't necessarily really know until you can start actually making contact and fitting runs and putting your pads on people. There's some guys that we're excited about that I think have a chance to be good players, but there's a lot of time in between now and when we play that's got to get sorted out. So far, so good as far as guys knowing what to do and how to do it, but the pads is the separator. That's you can't get it quite the evaluation you necessarily need to from top to bottom. But I think James Williams has done a good job. Cedric's filled in nicely. We've signed 2 other linebackers in recent weeks that have filled in and built the depth in the room, and so it's an ongoing process.
With JC and the challenge to refine his body, Latham, was there a certain point during the season that you made that decision, or was that something just because I know you say you spoke to him at the end of the year? When did you kind of come to that conclusion?
Well, if you ask him, I'm sure he'll tell you the same thing. Probably about the second half of the year is when it started to catch up to him. I think he realized that, what maybe worked in college as far as his weight isn't going to work at this level. The athletes are too good, the speed, the power. You have to be in great shape to play at that level for 17 games, hopefully more. There's a body type that you have to be at, I think, to physically make it through that gauntlet of players you have to play against and the physicality of the position to maintain your ability to play at a level over 17 games. I think at the second half of the year, his weight caught up to him. He wasn't as good with his feet. He didn't finish the way he's capable of finishing. And I think he watches the tape, and I think you look back in hindsight and you realize, that wasn't good enough. And credit to him for understanding and knowing and actively seeking to get himself in position to be where he is right now, which I think he's in great shape. He looks a lot different physically. But you got to make those decisions as a young player. You start to realize that maybe what you got away with before, you can't get away with at this level. You have to be on top of it. And being a pro at this level isn't just about how you perform on the field. It's how you take care of your body, how you recover, how you rest. Those are probably equally as important as the performance part, and you have to have those to be able to perform. So he really recognized it, realized the where he had to get better, and he attacked it, and he's put himself in a good position.
How much does a guy having a veteran like Zeitler right next to him, how much does that help ease that transition?
Anytime you have a guy like Zeitler next to you, that's a huge bonus because he's played so much football at such a high level that he's going to be able to impart some wisdom on him. They can have conversations about his experiences, and anytime you have veteran players that can help you grow up or improve your game, that's what those guys are here for. And most young players, you find the right veteran, they can really help them take the next jump, and that's a part of the process. But it's certainly great to have him next to JC as a young player. He should be thrilled to have that guy being able to communicate with them.
Maybe you're still holding back, or guys who may be here that we might not see because they're rehabbing?
As of right now, no. Outside of the ones we've already talked about.
Still maybe Khalil and
Yeah, they're still working back. They're making progress. They'll be out moving around, but not in practice. That's the only one Those are the only guys I can think of. Nothing new, I should say, that I could alert you to. Same thing. He's here working. His process is coming along. He's out here doing some work. He's progressing and is running and is moving and is anchoring, which really is the biggest thing when you're talking about coming off an Achilles is, getting that strength and power back and feeling good about anchoring against 300-pound humans. So he's coming along. He's doing great. He's in really good shape too. And he's out here moving and doing some stuff, but he's not involved in the actual drill work.
Receivers, you've seen them against the air. You start to get some of the answers as to what you've got physically now that they can go against the defense.
Yeah, this is the start of that for them, and it's easy on air, as the old Mike Tyson adage goes. Everyone's got a plan until they get punched in the mouth, and you get a chance to see these guys compete a little bit. Now having to recognize coverage, see it in real time, react versus technique, show their strength at the top of the route, their ability to separate, understand and recognize leverage. There's a whole bunch of things that now get thrown at them. That's really good. And you see how quickly they can pick up on it, how quickly they can adjust to the speed and the tempo. This is a really important time of year for those guys to get adapted. So when it's time to go compete with pads on, they're ready to do it.
Anything that has intrigued you or impressed you about John Fassel so far, just about whether it's tactics or style, approach, anything?
He's got such incredible energy. You guys will probably see him today a little more on the field, but he's the most positive, high energy, infectious personality I've been around in a long time. He's fantastic. He keeps it simple. He lets guys play fast. He does a really, really nice job connecting with the team as a special teams coach. I'm thrilled to have him. I've been really impressed with his work on the grass too. The guy's just a fantastic football coach.
Like getting to know Cam during the draft process and everything. How much did you have a lot of interaction with his dad, Calvin? And if so, what was that like?
I would say enough. Enough. I mean, we spent plenty of time with them. It was great. They're really down to earth, blue collar people. His dad, first time I met him, he rides an hour to work at the power plant that he works at every day. And you can tell that's how they raised Cam. They're really, really impressive people. They're really good people. But I've enjoyed every interaction I've had with both of his parents. You can tell why Cam is the way he is based on your interaction with his family. And I can't say enough good things about my interactions with them and the type of people they are.
To the camps and things, sometimes 3 hours, sometimes 5 hours, like that dedication. What do you think of the dedication he had to load up the car, put Cam in there and go there? Yeah,
I think that's an impressive dedication to helping his son. I think all of us that are parents understand that feeling and how much you want to give back and put your kids in position to be successful. But I think, he also allowed him to fail a bit and learn, which I think was important. And I think that's his journey is kind of littered with that. The going no-star recruit. Didn't throw the ball a bunch in high school, but his journey I think is really unique and cool. But a lot of it comes from how he was raised, and he dealt with some of the shortcomings and his failures and the recognition that didn't come until obviously late in his process. But all the things you see from his parents trying to pour into him and give him all the opportunities to succeed, I think is admirable. And I think it obviously paid off for him. And, I think he'll be the first to tell you how much that means to him and how appreciative he is. And he understands what his parents sacrificed to allow him to be where he is today. Yep. Thank you.
What was the attraction about coming to this franchise and helping them, especially with a new kicker and a new punter?
It's a good question. I think at the end of the season, in Dallas, all of our contracts were up. And Coach Callahan, I didn't know real well, but I had a chance to talk to him as soon as my contract expired about possibly coming here. And I think the attraction was a new staff, obviously 1 year into it, a young team. I think Nashville was always a destination that sounded like it would be good for my family. I got a wife and 3 kids. And Coach Callahan really called me, talked to me, recruited me, offered me the job. And I felt like it would be a great spot for myself professionally and for my family personally. And so we did it.
You start from zero, or do you look at some of the problems that have been here the last couple of years? Because it seems like some of that stuff maybe is ingrained with some of the people you're inheriting.
I don't know what you're talking about. It's all about, when we got here, what it is right now and the players we got. I watched a little bit of tape, last year just to get a little feel for the players, but I didn't want to watch too much, to be honest with you, because I wanted all of them to fairly have a clean slate. And I wanted the work that I put in with them to be their evaluation and kind of their judgment on how I felt about them as players. Because every coach sometimes asks players to do different things. So I didn't want anything that I saw on tape to be held against them that maybe is something that I wouldn't do. So it's a fresh start for me. It's a fresh start for them. And whatever's happened in the past, good or bad, doesn't matter. So I'm excited about whatever is to come.
Than a long field goal occasionally, it seems like this team has had lots of problems making game-changing plays on special teams, like blocking a kick or returning something for a touchdown. What are kind of the keys to being able to make those types of plays that change games?
I think it's a really good question. I think there's a couple of things. One is you can't ever force it. That's what I've learned, because there's been sometimes I try to force it, a big play, and it backfires. But I think the players have to be allowed, I don't know if that's the right word, encouraged to be able to kind of go for it, where there's not a fear of a penalty or a mistake or an approach that's kind of conservative. There's a danger with that sometimes too, but I think for players to make plays, whether it's blocking kicks or having big returns or making big tackles with takeaways, there has to be an element of freedom without the fear of the consequence from whoever it might be, teammates, coaches, front office, whatever it is. And that's kind of my experience is if you give them a little bit of freedom without the fear of whatever a mistake might incur, I think you reap some rewards from that.
Are there core traits you look for trying to identify your type of special teams player?
Yeah, I love that question too, because I've been asked that a lot, and I used to have an answer that was maybe true or not, but I don't think I have an answer for that, because I've had big guys that don't run very well be really good on teams. I've had small guys that you think would be overpowered that are really good on teams. So I think on special teams, I've learned that success from a player can come in all shapes, sizes, speeds, abilities, and it's my job to figure out what their strengths are and put them in positions or matchups that favors what their strengths are and not really concern myself with the weaknesses, because I think everybody's got both. I think the best players have weaknesses and the lesser players have strength, and I think that might sound like coach speak, but I really look hard at what a player does good and pick the right matchups and ask them to do what I think they can do at the positions that would lead to success.
You could. How do you kind of describe your own energy and sort of style you bring to your special team?
Yeah, I've always been hesitant to kind of answer that because I don't know what maybe I kind of know, but I don't really want to answer for what my style is. I think I try to keep things really simple. I try to make special teams something that players want to do by really encouraging hard work. I'm not talking to them about what a contract or the money or the length of the career could look like, 'cause I think that's a little bit artificial. I just I try to really encourage them to create a role for themselves on teams, especially young guys. So it's a hard question for me to answer because I don't feel comfortable answering kind of what somebody else's a player's evaluation of me might be.
What do you want your unit to be known for?
Relentless, with a little wild man in it. Because I think on special teams there's some of that where if you try to be real conservative or real perfect or real scripted or real schemed, I think that prohibits a little bit of the flair that comes with special teams, which is running and hitting and chasing and finishing. So that's what I would love for us to be known for. Not the schematics, not even all the big play highlights. It's just a consistent motor and relentlessness and a little bit of wild man.
You've been known for maybe having a little trickery, having a little imagination on special teams. How much leeway you think Brian's going to give you here?
I'm sure he'll probably. We haven't talked about that a lot. I feel like that's a little bit of been a reputation with the trickery and all that, but I don't like to be known for that, to be honest with you. I think that's part of the game on special teams, but if I would rather be known for something, it would be a really solid and sound special teams unit that goes nuts out there.
As you go through and evaluate the returners, what are some of the core things that you look for, and what are some of the things that you've seen before that were successful?
Yeah, good call. The punt returner, the number one is the ability to track and catch the football. And then I think there's something that you can see on tape, but you can't coach, which is the returner's ability to see a return unfold and run it and hit it where that is. Because a lot of times the big returns, and I was fortunate to have Turpin the last 3 years, a lot of times the big returns hit where you didn't exactly anticipate them or draw them up. So a returner's vision to kind of, okay, here's the idea, but this isn't demanded where you got to go because it just might not unfold that way. So, but the ball skills is number one for punt return catching, and then a vision is a huge part, which I can't do a lot of, but I can give them the freedom to go where they see it. And then kick return used to be not a big ball skill job, but a good tackle breaking job, where I feel like now with the rules, the ability for a kick returner to track the football and catch harder balls, which you're going to see a lot more this year than I think even we did last year. The ball tracking on kickoff returners is going to be huge. So you don't just put back there your normal big back that can run vertical and tackle break. He's got to be able to punt return, track balls, and catch dirty balls out of the sky, and then have the courage to run it, 10 guys coming at you on kickoff, which is a big part. So punt return, I would say ball catching and vision. Kick return, I would say ball catching and courage.
What are your impressions of Sly so far? And do you anticipate competition for him, or at least an additional leg to cover your workload?
Yeah, right now I'm very impressed with Joey. And if I felt different, I probably wouldn't say it anyways. But I wouldn't elaborate like I will. I think, he's known for his power. But over the last, couple weeks, he's here every day. He's a gym rat. And I think his accuracy has impressed me more than I anticipated, along with the big leg. So as far as competition, I haven't heard or been notified of anything like that. But right now it's just all the eggs are in his basket from my perspective. And I just love working with him on honing his game and trying to get him to have the best year he's had, like Hecker and like Morgan.
You imagine having some say in the last 5 guys on the roster. Last I know you don't want the past, but
yeah.
Last year there was not an emphasis on special teams skill at the bottom of the roster, and I imagine that's very important.
Yeah, I think that's always important. I can't speak for last year. I'm sure there probably was a little bit of that. I think every team, considers the last couple of roster spots. But as far as the say, I think everywhere I've been, I haven't worried about that. I feel like every place has been collaborative, like on, this guy's not a starting linebacker or starting safety. How do they perform on special teams? If there's a tie to break, maybe that comes into play. But I always felt like I've been heard, even though I maybe don't need to be. And I feel like this will be the same, with my so far relationship with Coach Callahan and, Mike Borgonzi and those guys. I think we'll all collaborate on all those things. I look forward to it.
This team has the number one spot in the waiver claim and all. Do you kind of keep your eye peeled on the waiver wire and maybe even make suggestions if a good special teams guy pops on there?
Yeah, it's a great question, and I definitely have my eye on it because I've always been interested on who's getting let go and why and how could they perform for us. So I know my job isn't to see a guy cut and go in and say, hey, we need this guy. But I think so far it's been a great collaboration, whether it's the draft, whether it's been a couple guys we've claimed that we've all talked about where we see this guy and what do you think? And I might say whatever I think, and the team does what they want to do, and I trust it. And I think having that one claim is a huge advantage. Probably better than having the first pick in the draft is having the first pick, in the claiming. So I'm excited to see how the whole roster unfolds, and I like the prospects of who we got, to be honest with you.
What's allowed Johnny Hecker to stay effective, for a number of years now, and I guess I should ask how his arm is looking so far.
Yeah, I know how his arm is. That's always going to be good. But I think what's kept him in the league for, is it 13, going on 14 years now, is his athleticism. I mean, he's, 6'5", 240 pounds. And I had him my first 8 years with the Rams. And then the past 5 years, we've been in different places. But to reunite with him has been awesome. And I feel like with Johnny, there's a little bit of trying to get back to some roots with him, because he's able to do so many things. The focus has kind of been honing in on just one or two things because he's got such a good bag. So it's been great working with him again. He's still got it, arguably better than ever. And I look forward to getting back with him. But his athleticism is different, which I think has allowed him to stay successful in the league.
Great to
Yeah,
meet you.
okay.
Like,
Great, guys. Thank you.
Corners that were values. How good you feeling about the depth at corner, and how important was that?
I think right now, it's going to be competitive. Some of these guys had high grades. They produced well in college. So just getting them out here, getting them acclimated, trying to get them to learn the system. They all starting from a clean slate. It's going to be really competitive, and, the best guys are going to rise to the top. So it's going to be exciting to see how they develop over this off-season and during training camp.
How excited was it for you to be able to get Kevin Winston Jr., given that he was available as late as he was in the draft?
Oh, Kevin, he produced at a high level at Penn State. I've known his track record since he was in high school. Obviously, y'all know that we went to the same high school. So my high school coach spoke very highly of him throughout the years, and for him to be there and understand, the way he can produce, the type of player he is, the type of person he is on and off the field. I'm excited for him to get an opportunity and see how it all shakes out for him.
You see potential for like big nickel dime stuff if you want to get him on the field as a third safety?
We'll see how it pans out. I'll wait till he gets on the field. He has to get on the field, move around, just give him an opportunity to play safety. And then if the skill set fits, we could put him in places to try to get the best 11 on the field.
What are some of the things that you like about Femi and make you believe that he could develop into a guy that could help us pass?
First of all, Femi's passion for the game. He's a guy that played the mic position, so he communicates well. He has a thorough understanding of kind of the big picture of football. He's a violent player. He gives everything he has. He loves it. He's passionate about it. Guys like him and, some of the young guys and the guys that's been here, those are the type people on and off the field you want to be a Titan, all right, because he'll put it all on the line to produce, and he's about the team. He's about being the best version of himself for the team. And you see it every day. You see the passion he has. And, I hope he just keeps growing and growing into the position, and, the rewards will come because he's going to put the time in to get it right.
To give Arden a run for his money as far as being the guy you hear first before you see him?
He probably is. It's funny, Arden has been kind of a little bit dialed back as of right now. To speak of Arden, I love where he's at right now. He's taken a leadership position with the people in the group. I think he's maturing on and off the field, and you just see it every day. It's like, we talk about each one, teach one, and he's one of the first guys that's teaching the young guys how to be better, what to do, the tricks of the trade, things he's messed up throughout his career. So where Arden's at right now, and I love where he is, he's still loud, but Femi is a little bit obnoxious with his communication.
Brian was talking about philosophically shifting toward getting a little bit bigger on the edge. Just kind of what was the motivation for that, and why do you think that's
It's a big man game. And, in order to play in this game, you gotta crush the pocket, condense the pocket, you gotta collapse the pocket. You have elite pass rushers in the National Football League. They get paid a lot of money, but if you watch throughout the course of the playoffs and, during the Super Bowl, the guys that can collapse the pocket, that can knock it back into A and B gaps and restrict it off the edge was the guys that was having success. It's no different than when you looked at Verse coming out last year and the way he produced for the Rams last year. So our intentions is to be more direct with the way we rush, have a more balanced approach, no step-up lanes, getting everybody to work as one up front, and we've had a hell of a start of doing that, doing out this OTAs in phase 1 and phase 2.
You envision Draymond Jones kind of playing a hybrid role, depending on if you're giving a 4-3 or 3-4 look to the offense? Or is he a guy that can kind of fill multiple spots.
Yeah, Draymond, he could play up and down the line. Obviously, I wouldn't put him at the nose tackle position unless it was a pass down where he can win. But he can play the 3 technique. He can play the 5. He's played a 4-eye. He's done it all. He's played on the edge. He's a stout man. He's a powerful guy. Everything that I thought about when I looked at him on film, you see it every day. The way he conducts his work, the way he goes about his business, he's been another guy that's been a catalyst of trying to develop these young guys to be better football players. So just like talk about Arden Key, Draymond has been outstanding with grabbing Jalen Hurd, been outstanding with getting Ali Gay and trying to teach these guys the tools of the trade because they've been in the fire. So I love where he's at. He can play multiple positions. He's another guy that's smart, intelligent, big man that can knock the pocket back. So we'll put him in positions to win as we start the game plan versus teams.
Is the position next to Cody, is that wide open right now? And I guess if so, what are you looking at? What do you want to see?
It's extremely wide open. First of all, great addition getting Cody. He's a leader. He's a guy that can orchestrate the defense. He's ahead of it. He studies. He's smart. Love that we have him. But in terms of the other position, it's kind of everybody's getting an opportunity. We're rotating them. Cedric has played some Mike, have put Cody at the wheel a little bit when Ced's in there. James has been in there. Anthony, all the guys that we have played. And, right now they're getting a feel for the defense, understanding what they're supposed to be doing. But when the pads come on, they'll separate themselves, and the best man's going to play. And then also we talked about position flexibility. Some guys can do things better than others. So there's always a chance of first and second down having players out there. You can have third down, dime linebacker, whatever it may be. But the competition is wide open, just like the DB, the young guys we talked about in the DB room. And what it's going to do is going to make us better from the bottom up. Organizations, they strive when it's built from the bottom up, not top down. And, going through last year, at the end of the year, when we kind of fell off a little bit, the depth wasn't there. Right now, we got young guys that we're creating depth. Some guys have played. So I'm excited about the nucleus and how we're going to build it from the bottom up. And these guys are giving everything they have, and love the work and the effort that they're putting in right now.
Look back at last season, what are some areas going into this offseason you said we got to be better here, and what are some ways you can already start improving?
First and foremost, when you look back at last season, the number one thing that hurt us was penalties. If you look at the red zone percentage, you look at third down, like as I did a deep dive into those areas, we got penalties that kept us on the field. There were so many times we were in the red zone on third down, we should have been off, and it was illegal contact. It was pass interference. They gave a team another set of downs to go down there. So the first thing is about penalties. But why do penalties happen? Bad eyes, bad techniques, fundamentals, not getting a line and playing position and leverage and putting your body where you're supposed to be. So it's all encompassing. I think that the penalties is the number one thing. We still have to tackle well. We have to be better in our run fits. We have to be better at shrinking the edges, right? A lot of the plays came, because we didn't set the edge with force and restrict it, make teams run in a phone booth. So there's so many areas that we have to get better at. The good thing about an offseason is you can look at yourself, and then you can also look at the scheme and how can you correct the scheme, what's good about the scheme, and how do we tweak the scheme to fit the players that we have. So I think that we have a big picture view of what needs to be done. We've corrected some things that we've been teaching. I'm excited about the 2 new coaches that we have on board. They're outstanding coaches, fundamentally, technique, and the coaches that was already here. So, we have an idea of what we want to do. We know the direction in which we want to go. I know I'm going to call the games a little bit differently than I did last year because, you learn by doing. And when you trial by fire, you figure out, what really works and what doesn't. And our biggest thing is putting these guys in position for them to have their best football ahead of them. So if that's putting Sweat as a zero nose, if that's, putting Jeff in different positions, we're going to do that for the team. And, we got a whole big picture view of where we need to go.
Your job obviously is to build the defense first and foremost, but have there been times out here where Brian will let you turn something loose and see how Cam handles it in terms of responding to what he sees on the field from you?
Well, it's been 2 days, and there's no restrictions on what we install, but it is an install progression, right? I can't throw the kitchen sink at them when our players don't know the basic fundamentals. And the first opportunity they had to compete against one another was yesterday. You know, I'm looking at like the young corners. They haven't played live football since their last college game. You know, we can do all the drill work and go against each other, but Cam has done an excellent job. One thing that I see about Cam, you know, everybody sees his leadership and his confidence, but he can see the whole field. He has an innate ability to find the open receivers. We're not going to be limited in what we do. We play multiple coverages. We have multiple pressures. We're going to throw it at him and, you know, daily, you know, doing our daily installs, and he's going to respond. He's been responding all his career, and I'm just excited to have him.
Great leadership for your unit last year, and out of that, how much are you enjoying these opportunities that are created out of this new offseason?
Well, I think last year the leadership can always be better. You know, I think that as they look back and we looked back at ourselves, some guys had self-reflections on how could they help other players. You know, we talk about leading by example is not what you want to do. It's your job to show up and play hard. That's your job. But if you're not bringing people to the well with you, if you're not taking them to the water and they're not walking with you hand to hand, you're not a leader. So right now the guys understand that leadership isn't just about showing up and do your job. This is your profession. Leading is bringing other people with you and teaching the young guys and teaching even the guys that's been here to be the best versions of themselves. And I think that everybody on this team right now has gravitated to that message, and it's been sprinkled down from the top down from our head coach. He's done an excellent job this offseason. Just like we all say, it's self-evaluations. He's self-evaluated some things that he could have did well, and he's implementing it with us, and we're feeding it and we're running into it, and the players love it. The energy, the effort, the attention to detail, understanding, you know, it's not about the plays that you should make, it's the plays that get you beaten in this game. And the guys thoroughly understand that we lost games because we beat ourselves. And we're trying to get that off of the radar so we give ourselves a chance to line up and be competitive every game that we in this year.
What are your expectations for Snead, and just kind of what have you seen from him when he's been here?
Oh, anytime Legarius is in the meetings, perfect young man. He speaks. He asks the right questions. He's engaging. He talks to the young men. You know, he has a voice in the room. He has the experience. You know, the thing about him is just getting healthy. And right now he's still working through the process, but he's working diligently in the training room to get there. So when he gets on the field, you know, I expect high expectations from him. He does from himself. He's another guy that's very prideful. Last year didn't go the way he wanted because of injuries and because of, you know, maybe left a play or two here or there. He understands that. He has something to prove. Legarius got to this position because he has a chip on his shoulder. He was an underdog. He was a guy that has worked his way up, you know, from college to being a later round draft pick to starting to getting paid by another organization. You know, I have all the faith in the world on Legarius Snead. When he's out there on the field, he's a dominant force.
With so many new players in the wide receiver room, how do you see them challenging and sharpening your secondary?
Yeah, I mean, anytime it's competition there. You know, we drafted some guys. Lockett being here, you know, I've gone against him in numerous years as a slot receiver. Calvin continue to grow. So iron sharpens iron. And the better they are, the better we become. The better we are, the better they become. And the better both units and every unit on the team is, the better the team will be. And everything about us is about where the team is going. How do we make the team better? So it's been great to have the young guys there. It's been great bringing in the additions that we've had from a free agent standpoint. The team is getting better and we're growing together. And if we're growing together and staying in the same direction, we'll be just fine.
Thank you, Dennard. And processing the way you'd like to at this point of the year.
He's doing great. He's an early morning guy. He's here, you know, earlier than some of the coaches, and he gets in early, and he's very detailed and regimented about how he studies. He's got a way he's kind of learned in the past and kind of taken in new information. So we got with him early, and he said, hey, can we meet this way and kind of do some things? And then it's been really good for him. It's been good for us too. Good kind of learning some different ways to teach and things like that. So.
Understanding that there are different players between Will and Cam, is there anything notable about the way that you guys are going about it this time as opposed to last year?
You know, I would say a little bit. I think experience always probably helps all of us, probably helps me, probably helps Brian, everybody going through it with a new system and a new quarterback last year. So there's some subtle changes we've done and some other things we thought we did well last year. So there's probably a healthy balance of that. But yeah, I think that's probably the best way to say it.
How has Cam been just as far as like building that confidence with the O-line, being able to spit that play out, with no hesitation and just, develop that confidence from the other guys?
I don't think he's got you meet Cam, he's got that kind of cool, calm confidence, and it kind of comes across, the same guy we kind of met in the pre-draft meetings and on the visits and things like that. It's authentic. It's who he is. So that makes it kind of easy for him to be that same guy. And he goes in there and, if he screws something up, he's the first one to admit it. And he's still got that kind of same cool demeanor. So I think that for him really helps. And it's genuine for the guys. So the guy's always, it's who he is. And it's been that way every day since he's been here.
Handled kind of having his hat in the ring, but maybe some inevitable stuff for a guy that's had some struggles and had some disappointment in things.
Will's been great. He's handled kind of, the new situation. He knew at the end of the season that, the QB room wasn't going to stay the exact same and that there was going to be competition. And I give him a lot of credit on two fronts. He went out and he worked his tail off this offseason. He kind of went out to California and really kind of honed in on some things and really was, I would say, diligent and focused in the things he wanted to improve. And I'm sure that comes with experience and having gone through a whole season and saying, okay, this is how it went. Here are the things I can fix. And then attitude-wise, he's a good dude. He's a good teammate. And so there's really been no change in him in that regard. He's kind of good with all the players. And I give him a lot of credit for that because, when you draft number one pick, it's not an easy situation.
How's the interaction been between him and Cam inside the meeting rooms and all?
Good. They're all good teammates, and we made it a point to bring in good people. And I think if there was a problem, it would have already reared its head. Everybody understands the business in the NFL, and there's only one quarterback spot, and they're both fighting for it and doing a good job. So they're supportive of each other, and they help each other out if they see something on tape. And then you got Brandon and Tim in there too. So it's been a good group. They've gone to dinner a handful of times as a quarterback group, and Brian's been really, preaching about how much we're going to kind of be a more connected team, and the quarterbacks have taken that and taken a leadership role with that too.
Cam was saying one of the biggest changes that he's had. Cam was saying one of the biggest changes from college to the pros has been just the half yards. Working more in the middle and being on time. Is that typical for any rookie, and how have you guys helped him, somewhat in that regard?
The field space is very different for, you come from the college and you just feel like the wide field is so far out there, and then the boundary, everybody's, you can get all these boundary pressures all the time, and all the field pressures in the college, you can kind of see them kind of from a mile away. And the NFL, the ball's pretty much in the middle of the field, and they kind of blitz each time. So really it's protection-wise, and then from the route spacing, he's been kind of had to feel the differences of it's always going to be kind of the same throw, which is a little bit easier for the quarterbacks in general. So yeah, and then he's had a bunch of walkthroughs, and we meet with the guys as the rookies, and we kind of meet in the indoor and kind of stand there and not have kind of like a meeting on the grass sometimes, where those guys can then kind of feel the space rather than sitting in a meeting room and just kind of looking at a screen.
I guess you were saying you better not be the lead if you're throwing over the middle that much more.
For sure, absolutely. And then just the kind of the identification, they can hold your shell better, and all the coverages disguises better when the ball's in the middle of the field, so they can kind of cover the same amount of ground.
Go ahead, Nick. With Cam's confidence, how much of this phase of his build do you want him testing his arm, making some of these taekwondo throws in practice, versus kind of learning the reps of taking what's given for him?
It's always a balance. There's kind of he should be learned by doing. You know what I mean? The experience is the greatest teaching tool we have. So you want him to test it and kind of see what it is. I think he had one yesterday. He tried to fit in a ball into a real tight window, and I'm sure in college that ball was open and got completed. And yesterday, different results. And he's kind of like, well, I used to do this, that, and kind of sits in the meetings, sees the speed of the game, how quick those windows are, and there's differences. And then there's other ones he still does fit in. So we want him to be aggressive. I think you draft a player like him that has his tape, and you don't want to coach all those really positive aspects out of him and make him a robot. But at the same time, he's got to learn the value of the football too.
Do you see that balance kind of being honed as these practices go on?
Yeah, it's the second day, really against against actual people. But he did today was better than yesterday. So it was obviously one day in, we'll take that progress.
Impressive, I guess, been some of your new guys, whether it's Van and Tyler or the three rookies on offense.
I couldn't hear you over the lawn.
I said, what kind of been your early impressions on some of your newcomers, whether it's Van and Tyler or three rookie playmakers on offense?
Van, he is kind of this quiet, steady, kind of everything we had hoped from just a really dependability standpoint. He knows what to do, knows how to do it. I think a guy like him becomes a quarterback's friend and the offense's friend really quickly because he's played in a system. The Rams stuff was similar, and some of the stuff they did in Atlanta was similar. And then with Arthur last year in Pittsburgh, some of the same passing concepts. So he's got banked reps on those, so that's been really good. Tyler is a kind of a football junkie. He's I've kind of had to tell him to stop texting me all the time, and he's watching all these tapes and sending me these videos and everything else. And it's like, man, we are going on air against we got a bunch of trash cans out there. That's a great play, but sometimes we got to hone it back. And then the three young guys, those guys, it's been really impressive how serious they are about football and how well they take in information. When we were in the pre-draft process, those three guys, there were a lot of guys, but those three in particular really stood out as guys that were smart and could really come in and kind of like handle it a lot. You didn't have to slow it down. Really they could catch up to the veterans pretty quickly, and that's been the case. And so there's a maturity of those three, which is pretty fun. And, we have extra meetings with the rookies in the afternoon, and they're on it, and they got great questions, and that's they're football guys, so it's been awesome.
Brian said not to read into quarterback order or reps or anywhere.
Yep.
Is having Allen go first most of the time an easy, clever way to steer us off the conversation?
What? We would never do anything like that. Please, I'm insulted. No, there's a couple of things of just, he took the first ones today. He's a veteran guy, played in the system. He gets some of his reps. Really, the number of reps aren't totally what matters. It's the reps that we specifically want to give somebody. So they want to give, hey, you take this play, there's some things you need to work on. So there's some things that we've given specifically to him because they were problem plays last year. You know what I mean? Hey, did we fix this? Did we fix this? This is the first time you're going to see, hey, a nickel blitz. Great. And we don't tell him it's coming, and now he's got a problem for that. So it's a little bit of, some of them are play specific of like, we know, Dennard and we all work together of, hey, they want to see a 3-by-1 formation and they're going to blitz. Okay, we want to do this. And then now we get to kind of get some of the visuals in for those guys. So it's really more play specific than order specific.
But the play specific that you had for Allen, you conveniently put at the front.
Could be whenever you want, Paul. Could be whenever you want.
As you put all that together, the game plan and just the scheme itself, like how much goes into, hey, I want to make sure that this is comfortable and familiar to Cam Wood?
So we've, kind of gone through a lot of Cam's college tape and found some of the things, we'd watch all the years, all the way back to Incarnate Word. So we found a handful of concepts that were similar, that we liked, that he would have an instant kind of comfortability with. So some of those, he gets a handful of those every day, every 2 days, whatever it is. And then we sprinkle in the new ones just because you want them to, have confidence and play fast and those kind of things. So we've been able to mix a little bit and then kind of give him some new stuff every day. And then kind of being under center is new for him too. And kind of the under center play actions and under center movements. So kind of giving him a little bit of what he knows and then a little bit of what he hasn't had.
So what you say is more of finding similar things in your already existing book to what he's done before than
and a little bit of both. And then we took some things that he had and they were cool concepts. And, we've met with, we went down to Miami twice and, met with their coaches and they kind of showed us some cool stuff. And so there's some kind of stuff all over the place. And we're kind of just going to see what sticks in the end. And, it's day 2. So it's not, they're not all in and it's not all kind of hit the grass yet.
Your 3 top tight ends all seem to have very different skill sets. How do you kind of incorporate what each one does into this offense going forward?
Chig's kind of the speed, kind of all-around player, kind of does all those things. And then really with Gunner and even, Tommy O and DMR and Josh, like it's a little bit of finding their roles, but also, they've all kind of got to fit in the right spot. So we got to kind of throw them out there, let them kind of sink or swim a little bit in some stuff, we're going to put them in some pass pro situations and see which guys can really handle that, which guys can be the vertical guys, which guys are just kind of underneath guys. So there's a little bit of, the room has deeper than it was last year with the addition of Gunner, and Gunner's a little more versatile. So there's kind of that mix of now all those other guys can kind of find some different jobs to do. So we feel really good about the room where it's at, and then there's been good mixing and matching.
Being a part of the draft process, and especially spend so much time with Cam, was there a moment for you when you left thinking, hey, this could be our guy, could be special?
I know I seem like a really positive person, but I am the eternal pessimist a little bit in the evaluation stage. So, I kind of start off hating them all and hate all the quarterbacks and kind of like them. And as we went, the combine, meeting him for the first time in person, it was like, all right, I really liked the person. I really liked how he talks football, all those other kind of things. And then you left the pro day and you were like, this is going to be a tough guy to say no to. I'm not into all the other, maybe we can draft somebody else, whatever the value is. Looking at a quarterback like him and the way he kind of carried himself and our meetings with him and all those other things, I think the pro day kind of for everybody always like, this is going to be a tough guy to walk away from.
What did you say? Has Traylon, I guess, impressed you with the quickness that he's kind of been back in the field, and what do you need to see as he progresses here in the offseason?
He's just kind of obviously what we need to see get healthy, and he's coming back faster than we thought. He's been great in all the meetings. He's very engaged with everybody, so he's really maximizing what he can do with what he's physically able to do and what he's allowed to do right now. So happy with him, and I think. He sees that there's a lot of competition in the room and that there's some new bodies and everything else, but he's done everything we've asked, no complaints. And, guys get hurt and it's unfortunate, but I think you got to hand him a lot of credit of how he's working to get back and how he's been with the other teammates in the building and been in the meetings and things like that. So,
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.